5 that are qualified and experienced to go around already to the companies that exist that are paying money. They're already up and running. And so there's not like there's a lot left over. I continue to be about it. Know that nobody has hired Delirious, Hunter Johnston, in creative or television production. He's only done it for the last 10 or 12 years straight. But then I'm not amazed because he's overqualified and would probably be like, bringing in an astrophysicist to fucking tune up your goddamn motor.
But wrestling, I always say this, that AEW was a lost opportunity to develop wrestling executives, and the problem is just the whole structure there, for good or for bad. It's not really a structure for that right now, but
none of the people getting experience as executives or people in production in AEW are going to go on and become future executives and production people in other companies. The Hardleys, Twinkle Toes, QT, he's barely been a disappointment from what I've heard. So
I have a list here of some of the things that apparently Freddie Prinze, I guess he said this on a show, because I'm reading quotes here.
Okay, well, I know nothing about his mindset other than this initial announcement that I heard. So anything to narrow down, because the one thing that worries me is when people say they want reality-based angles or presentation storylines.
Yeah.
Who's reality? That's the same thing Shitstain said. And there is no reality anywhere on this planet or any other alternate universes that was like Shitstain's version of reality. So when I hear reality, the concept, yes, but the execution often is what?
Yeah, the other thing is reality is the way wrestling traditionally was. And I'm not saying it has to be like old school, but traditionally it was shot the way sports were shot. This is the arena, this is where it happens. If there's a confrontation, it's happening out here, and they're arguing about something, that's reality-based. When all of a sudden it's, we gotta get a camera in the back, someone's being run over and they're being dragged. And then the Spicemen are landing, like, that's not reality-based, and that's what I worry about. But here's some of the things that Freddie Prinze apparently said he wants from his wrestling promotion. He wants a 2-hour show. He wants storylines based in reality. He wants men and women to be given equal time. He wants to own the space it's filmed in. And he wants to be a SAG show, or SAG people.
Well, starting with the last first, the easy one, he wants to own the place where it's filmed. That's the Davis Arena OVW concept, or any of the other
Arena Mexico.
Arena Mexico, yeah, in that form, that big a place. I don't think he's looking at building an 18,000 seat arena.
Of course not, but in lean times, you don't have to worry about where you're going to run a show.
Right. And that's why so many independents have modified their places. I mean, TNA shot at Universal Studios. They had a sound stage, but they didn't own it, and they were at the mercy of ridiculous rent, especially toward the end. So, yes, a great idea to own your space where you're shooting in, and that's where you build your fan base and, pick the town carefully, make sure it can support live wrestling. What was the last note?
He wants the promotion, or the show, I guess, to be a screen actors guild show. SAG.
This will be interesting because then what differentiates his wrestling from the WWE's wrestling? Except probably for budget. How would that will be very interesting to see if he not only allows it but courts it, but insists on it. And that sheds a light with this union on what these other companies are doing. You see where I'm going with this? That is the same exact thing. Probably with, different wording in the contracts, but the same general genre of sport, entertainment, profession, whatever. Why wouldn't they go after Vince and or Tony Khan and or whatever the case?
It'd be interesting, too, if the show is filmed in New York or Los Angeles. There's a chance the entire production, down to the wrestlers, could all be union. That would be a first.
But then if you join a union, to wrestle for Freddie Prinze that if the WWE wants to sign you for 5 times the money, but you're in a union, do you still, can you just not be in the union? Because they won't take you if you're in a union.
That's a great
Or if they don't take you if you're in a union, then is that some kind of criminal enterprise that they're conducting?
That's a great question, Jim. I think you should consult your union rep.
Well, as a matter of fact, who would be the union rep for a business that's never had a union?
Well, it would have to be someone from SAG. Does SAG get one of their own people, or does SAG try to look for wrestling expertise in their union?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And who's in SAG that has wrestling expertise? And then is it some nitwit that's done some stunt work and is nobody, and suddenly he's the guy that SAG goes to deal with the fucking Vince McMahon and the WWE and all these other places? And I mean, this could be entertaining.
Even funnier than that, just situations like, listen, they want me to get color. I don't want to get color. Okay, we'll take care of it. By the way, what's color? That's what I'm running into.
And that, again, Vince McMahon and the WWE, and I still say this, I don't know what Tony Khan's finances are, because they said he gets $100 million from the network, but he spent $80 million on a video game, and he's paid these guys a ridiculous amount of money. I don't fucking know, but I know that Vince McMahon and the WWE is financially stable enough to give the guys insurance, pay for them benefits, do more than they do, without having the government tell them to, or an outside union coming in, because we had this talk on the program, and I bet it's out there on the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. It just passed 294,000 subscribers. But we had this conversation about unionization. Who, in effect, is the union representative, and how in the world would a union work with a business that is completely unique? And one of the things would be, yeah, they need to get some juice when he clocks you with the fucking title belt. And then the union guy comes over and says, you want him to do what? Yeah, he needs to take a razor blade and cut his fucking head slightly so he'll bleed after Junior over there hits him over the head with that 20-pound fucking metal championship belt. Well, that could happen at any point in any wrestling show anywhere in America, but I bet you that would be the first time that any union representative had been faced with that conundrum. So there's going to be a learning process. I think Vince ought to do it with his guys without governmental or independent organization intervention, just because he fucking can and has the money to and can afford it. But for a lot of these other companies, that'd be entertaining, to say the least. But it was just trying to get Sinclair Broadcasting to understand the promotional side of the wrestling business on just a brief basis was hard enough without trying to teach some Hollywood union acting representative, oh, this is the wrestling business. But
one of the other things listed here, of course, was a 2-hour show. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't. If he can get 2 hours on something that people can watch, well, bless him. If he's got enough wrestlers to fill 2 hours.
2 hours is too long. I know everyone now is 2 hours or 3 hours, but to me, it still goes back to an effective show. I don't even think 60 minutes can be done anymore. 90 minutes is an effective show.
But again, I think this is the least thing that we need to worry about right now. When he's saying, I'd like to have a 2-hour show. Well, I'd like to have goddamn, well, not anymore. I don't have the energy to use it as good as it's then it would just take more time when I'd have to wash it and manscape it and everything before I could show it around. What? But you heard me. But the thing is, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, whatever, first he's got to get something on a platform that people will watch. So in his perfect world, in his mind, if he could have a 2-hour show, well, if he got a chance to get an hour on a station that people watch versus 2 hours on C-SPAN, he'd probably take the hour. I'm not worried about that. The only thing that he said in there that concerns me is women and men getting equal time. And then again, you're dooming yourself to excluding talent and just to have half and half for no reason, because you're going to find more qualified, talented guys And I'm not saying there's a plethora of either. And there's not that many trained fucking dogs, too. Thankfully, the British Bulldogs aren't a team anymore. There's not trained anybody and talented anybody in large numbers. But you can find more guys that deserve to be on TV right now than you are girls. So if you're trying to do half and half, and you're excluding some guys who'd be better performers just to put some girls on and ain't ready for prime time, AEW is paying a fortune to talent and doesn't give a fuck barely how many people they sign up, and they still can barely fill the women's roster without using the rejects from Twinkle Toes' repertory companies in Japan. So that's the only thing he said there that concerns me.
That concerns me too, and I think it's because it's now become just something everyone's supposed to accept and go with when you call wrestling. You have to have women on every show. And I think the high-end women's wrestlers are as good as top men's wrestlers nowadays. We'll talk about Becky Lynch later, but Becky Lynch is a fucking star. You watch her, you're like, yeah, this is a main eventer. I get it. But almost always,
there's a more dramatic fall-off toward the top of the roster.
It's a complete fall-off, and usually the person who has the least training or is the least ready for TV, that's on TV, is going to be someone in one of the women's matches, especially in AEW. It's happened way too many times. Big Swole was on TV a lot. Whatever you want to say, Big Swole wasn't ready for TV. And there's a lot of other people like that. But when all of a sudden we're going to have men and women, it's like people forget that for years wrestling focused on just the men's division. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's what it was, and it worked. Maybe there should be a company that just does that, because there aren't enough good women wrestlers to go around. And maybe just give the women their own show. Let's get proof of concept already.
Well, wait a minute, don't they have that? Wow, right? They're the women of wrestling. Have they actually fucking shot a show?
The only thing I know about it is I just saw a bunch of stuff that they fell out with Tessa Blanchard, which probably shouldn't be a surprise.
Well, now Tessa Blanchard fell out with them. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, we've experienced this chicken and this egg several times. I'm pretty sure we know which came first this time. But I think just arbitrarily announcing that, we're going to have men and women, why? What's the actual good reason for that? Just have a men's division. And I think someone should really produce a high-end women's wrestling show. And let's get proof of concept. Let's see what kind of audience it draws on its own and what it'll get. Because the top-end women's wrestlers are really fucking good. And after that, you have to tie yourself to your seat sometimes not to get up and go to the kitchen or go to the bathroom. That's the bathroom break match, usually.
Another thing I will point out is that I have no problem with the top-level girls having an athletic contest. And somebody say, he still calls them girls. You know what? Fuck y'all. It's girl wrestling. It's the boys. And it's Moolah's company was Girl Wrestling Enterprises. Every midget that I ever met introduced themselves to me as a midget, so blow me. But
no, well, they introduced themselves to you as a midget, not as a midget blow me.
No, I'm just saying for all you people who don't like that, I call them midgets, blow me.
Only girls. They do not.
No, he didn't do that very much. Where was I going with it? But the point is, I am fully behind the great athletic contest between the top female athletes in our profession. When they start having fights, grudge matches, hardcore, no DQ bullshit, I'm sorry. They can't do it. I can't believe it. I can't watch girls in a fucking Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler fucking no DQ match. It's not believable, and that is, after all, the ultimate goal of any professional wrestling project is to make the people that are watching it lose themselves in it and believe it. And so, I love to see Charlotte and fucking Becky and Rhea and Bianca, and the top, and Serena in some cases. The top girls athletically have top quality athletic contest, that's fine. The fucking bullshit with the grudge matches, I'm sorry, then it becomes two girls fake fighting, and that's just bullshit.
Well, beyond that, like I said, the top end women wrestlers are phenomenal, and as you said, a pretty quick drop off. And it's not enough to justify another promotion having another women's division. You can work in WWE, you can work in NXT, you can work in AEW. I think the NWA has women on their shows. I don't know what the fuck MLW does. I don't know what the fuck any of these other indies do. So now he's going to do it? What pool of talent is he going to pick from? Where's he going to get these talented people ready for TV? To be equal with the men who are ready for TV. Wrestling wasn't always men and women. Wrestling was men wrestling. And I know they've introduced everything and a lot of people accept it, but I think they drove a lot of people off. I know people don't want to say that, and people don't want to admit that, but I think there should be a wrestling option also that just has men's divisions and not women's divisions.
It drove a lot of things drove a lot of people off from wrestling, but that's one of them which contributes to the problem I mentioned, that it's either not fucking badass guys mad at each other trying to fuck their fucking eyeballs out anymore, which is what bloodthirsty people wanted to see in large numbers. It's now an exhibition of entertainment with girls, and that was a significant portion of the audience and wanted to see people that were mad at each other bust each other over the head with shit are not served. And henceforth, they don't want to see it. That's where we lost a lot of people. And the rest of them just because it's just not as good as it used to be. So now with Mr. Prince, we've got fewer people than ever watching wrestling, but they're watching more wrestling each than ever before. And they're spending more money each on wrestling than ever before, which is the only reason why this thing hasn't completely fallen into the fucking hole. Because there are so many more people that used to watch wrestling and don't now than there are that actually do. The people that do have banded together and crowdfunded AEW and done everything to pick up the slack, but we can't keep losing people. And now there's promotion after promotion trying to open and or expand and or operate, but there's no new audience being made. And the ones that we drove away have been driven away so well and for such good reasons that they're not anxious to come back. Except if you gave them what they were seeing until you stopped giving it to them, which was grown adult badass men that they believed hated each other, fucking try to gouge each other's eyeballs out, kick each other in the balls, and generally fucking commit mayhem. That you could believe. Not that was made no sense, was totally illogical, was obviously patently phony, requiring cooperation, and perpetrated by guys that looked like you. So there you go. Freddie, did you listen good to that one?
And who are the announcers going to be? That's the other problem. It's going to be another promotion. I shouldn't say it. I think it'll be another promotion that starts up with some Michael Cole clone just yelling at you. Because that's the other thing, the tone of wrestling. It's not just, we need another promotion where they can yell at you and tell you how excited you are to watch this. No, we need a completely different tone of things. And this Freddie Prinze Jr., who was a big enough WWE fan that he ended up working there as a writer. This guy had a film career. He ended up going to WWE to be a writer. That's how big a fan he was of WWE. Is he going to be the person who's going to put all those pieces together, or is it just going to be another NWA, another MLW? I mean, is it even going to get to that point and get off the ground? Will be a Lucha Underground, filmed on a set for a season, and then that's done. We really don't know too much other than he announced his intention.
But you know what? If he needs to listen, and listen closely to these podcasts we do to get a firm grip on the classic wrestling psychology, then Brian, I've got to think that he needs to block out extraneous dribble and noises and talk that he's going to hear and just focus on what's really important, almost like he's hearing it inside his own head. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
I think the best way to do that, Freddie, and if you will send me your mailing address, I will make sure that you get a complimentary pair of the Raycon wireless earbuds. folks, if you...
Don't call him Junior, call him Freddie K.
You don't gotta call him Freddie K. Why, you can call him Fred, or you could call him Frederick, or you could call him Frederica. But you don't gotta call him Freddie. But anyway, if you have a mother in your life also, folks, because this weekend is not only the weekend of the Kentucky Derby, it's Mother's Day. So, either Saturday or Sunday, bet on your old nag. Folks, personalize your Mother's Day gift or the mother figure in your life or any mother effer you know. Personalize that gift with something they really need. And you know, the moms are still the people that do a lot of the work, right? They need their hands. They need to multitask. Mothers are masters of multitasking. They're burping the kid in one hand, and they're feeding the kid in the other hand, and they're juggling the puppy dog on their foot. They need to be hands-free with vivid voice technology to take phone calls from you offspring that are calling them to say Happy Mother's Day and borrow money. Raycons are user-friendly for those mothers who are just switching to the wireless earbuds. They're easy to set up and easy to use. And they got the seamless Bluetooth pairing, so your blue-haired old mother with her blue teeth will have earbuds and pair up with them. And then she can wear a brown tie. Plus, they come in a bunch of fun color options. So, mother, sometimes they're jelly beans. I know that children sometimes like to hide their jelly beans in their mother's ear. Kids, if you're listening, put some jelly beans in your mother's ears.
No, don't do that. No. Don't put anything in anyone's ears when they're sleeping or awake.
Well, here's what you can put in somebody's ear, the optimized gel tips. For the perfect in-ear fit, these earbuds are so comfortable, they will not budge. Trust me, I'm telling you, I've seen mothers have these in their ear, and they take a belt off the wall and just go to wailing at 6 or 7 of their kids.
No.
Don't fall off.
No, there's no wailing on the kids. Stop.
No wailing on the kids. The kids were certainly wailing. For the mom on the go, these Raycon wireless earbuds, the everydays, they offer 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life. 32 hours, that's longer than your mother was in labor with you. So the least you can do after you did all that damage to her goddamn innards is to get her earbuds with a longer battery life than your labor took, you little fucking ingrate reprobates. But these Raycon everyday earbuds are priced just right because you get quality audio at half the price of other premium audio brands. And besides that, again, if you're so cheap, this is the only thing that you're thinking about to get your mother. No card, no dinner. The least you can do is get some Raycon everyday earbuds from mom with 49,000 5-star reviews. Make sure she hears it in crystal clear audio quality. And believe me, if you get her Raycon wireless earbuds for Mother's Day, she'll get the message. You go to buyraycon.com/JCE. That's BUYRAYCON.com/JCE to get 15% off your Mother's Day order. Even if it's a day or so after Mother's Day, I think this will work. BuyRaycon.com/JCE. Don't make mom have to take that belt off the wall and go to wailing. Right. The big news. There's going to be a new wrestling promotion started. A new promotion on the horizon. The man behind it, the son of Chico and the Man, Freddie Prinze Jr. One of my favorite. This is the biggest mind-blowing thing to me. Pillman Jr. is a second-generation wrestler, but through unfortunate circumstances, most of his life he grew up without his dad, obviously. So there was nobody in the family to be talking about the inside of wrestling to him in that respect. And then there's been other situations where a son of a wrestler would get involved in the business, even though there was a breakup early on, and the mother might have raised that kid, and, you know, so he wasn't around constantly. It wasn't like his dad was taking him to the matches. So it just depends on, you know, was the father still active in the business, or was he receiving? When Dusty had Dustin, he was still on top. But when Dusty had Cody, he had transitioned already to, you know, more of a backstage role. So you're still growing up with a guy, but you're getting two different attitudes, two different viewpoints from a guy who's on top in wrestling and then a guy who's transitioned, and you don't get to go out and see him work every night. You get to see the stuff that he has produced. It's knowledge, but it's still different.
Was it a gift that Lawler, Dundee, and Jarrett all have their kids into wrestling, or I mean, was there a point where you thought, wow, these guys are going to all have their kids in wrestling, or was it a surprise in any of these cases did?
Well, when I was there, it was a surprise in everybody's case, because Dundee's kid, Lawler's kid, and Jarrett's kid, when I was a photographer and or working the territory, was between 5 and 12 years old. So it would have been a surprise for all of them. But obviously the way it transpired, it's no surprise because those guys had homesteaded that territory. And because of their, obviously Jarrett was owner, then Lawler became part owner, Dundee was figured in as long as he wanted to be there. This was his relationship with Jarrett, the fact that he was, you know, on the all-time Mount Rushmore of box office attractions in the territory. With Jarrett, when Jeff came along, it was natural that Jarrett would want his son to follow in his footsteps, and with the eventual thought, I'm sure, of owning and running the territory. And Jeff, you know, had already been a high school athlete, and of course he turns pro when he's 18, so there's not even any college. They didn't wait for college in wrestling back in those days. With Lawler, I think Brian was a little bit shorter, but at the same time, even though he didn't have the size, he had more of the personality, because Jeff was younger. It took a while for the personality bulb to come on. So Brian was, you know, a personality from the start, and he took to the promo aspect and the showbiz aspect. I think the biggest surprise was Dundee with Jamie, because Jamie was both so small, so skinny, and ended up he could work his ass off. He might have been the best worker, straight and focused, of all of them, just in the ring with all the stuff he could do. But between the size and then the fact that he became a lunatic and, you know, alienated a lot of people, he had probably the third most successful career out of those three people. But with them being there, their fathers being in the business, in the office, ownership, or highly, you know, of high repute with the fans in that area, it's no surprise that they wanted to follow in their dad's footsteps, nor were they given the chance, because if Jarrett knew if any of the three of them clicked, you know, that would be better for the business there, and he didn't care whether, I don't think Lawler's son or Dundee's son ever went anywhere else. I'm sure he had aspirations for Jeff, but it's not a surprise. It ends up being kind of ironic that Jeff ended up being the most successful one overall, because he's the only one that ended up really following in his father's footsteps and getting into management and promotion. I've had a stressful week doing the action figures and running the castle around here and trying to get some things ahead of a week. I just talked to you 2.5 days ago, almost 3, on your show. Maybe that's why I'm so fresh out of topics. Well, we're going to talk about the few things that we've seen since then, and I have a couple of emails, and we got topics from the the interwebs. I forgot to do this last week, but I want to thank Gavin at Main Event Belts across the pond. But it's maineventbelts.com. Guess what he sent me? A complete as a free gift. Not even a parting gift. We were never together in that way, so we didn't have to part. But I'm fond of him now. Guess what he sent me?
A Main Event belt?
Well, that wasn't hard to goddamn figure out, but what would the belt be of? What specificity of the belt is there?
I'm talking about things you talk about on the air. It would either be a disgusting pizza or maybe a moat, or...
Yeah, the Moat Championship. I just won the Moat Heavyweight title.
That'd be a contested championship. You got the Monroe brothers down there by the moat, your neighbor and all this gravel.
The other neighbor in her ditch.
They ditch a Mustang just flying over at random times.
There's going to be some body end up in one of these natural orifices out here. There's a cave over 2 doors over. They got a cave next to the cabin that they set up there years ago. Anyway, but no, he sent me a Jim Cornette Louisville Lip Championship belt, custom made. It's got the main plate has me in all of my glory in the red and yellow outfit that the folks know from my original action figure that's seen on television so many times. And the leather is red on the front, yellow on the back. The side plates have my various designs. Thank you, fuck you, bye. I'm a Jim Cornette guy, that type of thing. It's an amazing piece of work, and he sent that as a wonderful gift for my many years of service to the community. See, you don't get a gold watch in wrestling. You get a main event belt.
That's very cool. That's very nice.
Maineventbelts.com. I've said that 3 times now. Probably paid for it by now. And our going advertising rates.
You mentioned the look you have on the belt. Is there a specific outfit you prefer being seen in public? How many photos are out there? Or if someone's going to draw a picture of you, is there a specific look you want?
Well, it depends on what they're going for. I mean, I know that I don't look the same as I did 35 years ago. I've lost a little hair. I'm a little lighter now than I was then. I love saying that. Yeah, I've lost some weight. I've lost a little hair, but I don't change. But we were actually, the Figures Toy Company and I were talking about future projects. And they said, well, if we make a modern day Jim Cornette figure, we don't really have to change the face. You kind of look the same. I said, how are you going to make them salt and pepper my hair? Are we dealing with artistes over there that are hand painting these things? Or is it like when you go to the spaghetti factory and order something special and they say, sir, we don't have chefs, we have cooks. Otherwise than my hair, I look the fucking same. Back to your question, what was it? I remember what it was. So it depends on the era. Obviously, in the 80s with the Midnight Express, I love the couple of color combinations that I've been known for. So the red and yellow that has been on and the red and green, the Christmas variant figures. That's why we did those. And one of my more famous outfits is the bloody white coat. That's why we did that. I love the pink and red suit. My Raw debut suit, yeah.
That was the one I was going to ask you about, yeah.
The pink and red Raw debut with Bobby Heenan. I mean, I was thinking back to because I knew that, besides the fact I'm debuting on Raw, I'm going to be standing there next to Bobby, and I was thinking back to all the outlandish warm-up suits and things he used to wear when I saw him as a kid, and I went with the pink and the red, etc. So that, and then again,
Bobby went with a windbreaker.
Well, he was clawing at that point. And besides that, it was a miserable fucking 150-degree building, and he was on the downhill slide there. Remember, he was leaving shortly afterwards, so it wasn't like he was, all in at that point. But we loved our time. But anyway, that suit and some of the more modern stuff, my announcer outfit or whatever, which is kind of more color appropriate. I was always color coordinated because a lot of the colors weren't perfect. But that's some of those suits. I like those. It just depends on what era they're going for. And now I can be depicted in a forehead face shirt, and I don't have to worry about you wearing a tie. That's been really the mission of my whole life. Get to where you don't have to wear a tie.
So do you like, you know, like the early was more preppy, more outlandishly rich as opposed to, you know, somewhat effeminate in terms of the colors? You know, it was like very...
You know, wasn't effeminate? I thought it was just
pink and red.
Well, goddamn, it goes together. You can see it. Jimmy Hart would wear that. Or other masculine men such as him.
I guess you know, now that I think that, I don't remember Jimmy Hart wearing that in Memphis either.
Well,
he had a better wardrobe than you in Memphis.
Well, no, when I first started, besides that, you asked about the preppy outfit. Yes,
it's three-piece suits. And,
yes. Well, especially when I was very young and very, you know, mama's boyish looking. But also, I've told you the story. The deal, I had no suits whatsoever. When Jerry told me, if you want to be a manager, come to TV next week wearing a suit, right? I had 0 suits. So I went out and rushed and bought a couple. But then Mike Duncan, who was Christine Jarrett's nephew, had been a television announcer and commentator for a lot of Knicks TVs in Alabama and Tennessee for years before that. It was, at that time, was the weekly ring announcer in Louisville, but his daytime job was he worked at this men's clothing store down at the Hickory Hollow Mall in Nashville. And let's just put it this way, I mean, the statute of limitations has run out on this anyway, and Mike's passed away, so what the fuck? And I was a struggling rookie wrestling manager in need. Mike, being smart, and also I debuted in the middle of fucking August, right? But one of the suits that I bought, because I didn't know fucking suits from apple butter, as they say. Actually, no one's ever said that. I just did. I bought a fucking heavy wool suit that you'd wear in the goddamn Alaskan tundra in the middle of whale season in January. It was the hottest. I could put it on in a goddamn air-conditioned room and be sweating. So Mike said, you need some good clothes, and you don't have a lot of money to spend on them. Come see me. So, it was a men's clothing store in a nice, fashionable mall. I wasn't going to be able to get the pink slacks and the Zabada and everything, but he got me rich kid, preppy type clothes, and the deal was, he'd have me pick out, or he'd pick out everything in place for me, and the ties, and this matches with that, and the jacket, and the pants, or whatever. And he'd have this giant stack of shit. I'm thinking it's going to be fucking, you know, $1,000. And he'd take it because he was the manager at the time, and the employees wasn't looking at him, and he didn't know, they didn't know what was going on. He just, as he's talking to me, ring up every third item. They'd hear a ding, ding. He'd pass by a sport coat and a pair of pants and ring up a fucking tie for $15 back then, right? So I got this, my first year's worth of clothing from, you know, the store in Nashville on the 1/3 discount plan. And then I got smart enough the next spring, if you went to the stores in Louisville, they had the derby clothes, the red jackets, the green jackets, the fucking colorful stuff, right? And that's where, in a golf store, you can get the ridiculous colored Sanzabel pants. Because, yes, originally I looked totally legitimate as a rich kid currency manager, but besides the fact that the three-piece suits got hot.
Oh, come on!
The colorful stuff was cheaper, seasonal, and easier to replace, and the Sanzabels had more give to them because they were polyester. Once I started wearing the fucking colored shit, people just went insane. Like, what the? Like I had kicked their dog on the way by their house and then thrown feces on their mother just because I was wearing that. So I said, well, fuck you, then I'll have some more of this shit. And the yachting cap and all the other bullshit was just, you know, yeah. So anything I wore that people threw shit at, commented on negatively, told me I looked like a piece of shit or whatever the case, and I got more of that.
There were some times in world class, it's on TV, that's how I know, where you just look pure evil. Like you were just, when you were dressed, and you must have been miserable being in Dallas, knowing everything else that you could be doing right now, and you just like snarl. You're not even like the usual Chip Cornette. You look like you don't want to be there, and you're just nasty.
And that was, by the way, that was the fucking one we were trying to think of. Snarly was the one we missed the other day. But yeah, well, no, and it's again, one thing I hadn't had a lot of experience in at that point was television with close-ups, because on Memphis TV, yes, in the studio, but I'd been the rookie, in training at that point. We go to Mid-South, yeah, they got close-ups on our promos, but the Irish McNeil Boys Club 2-camera setup for Mid-South Television was not revolutionary in the television industry. It got the point across, but when the world-class production and they got the cameras at ringside when shit's going on and the match is going on, or right before the match we're getting ready and the camera's up in your face, that's why, okay, I need to let these people know that I have some type of malicious intent. And then I would watch the tapes back and see where it picked us up and caught us, and then I, obviously I already knew to watch for the tally light, the red light as they say, which is a tally light. If it's a professional television production, I've seen some and done some and produced some that were wired up with duct tape and fucking fishing line, but you'll have a tally light, you'll know what camera's on. So, and sometimes I don't want to react to the floor camera that's on me because of something that's going on in the ring should have my attention, but I should be registering some kind of emotion about it. So I know the camera next to me is on, but I'm not going to look at it. I'm looking at what I'm supposed to be paying attention to, and I'm letting them know how I feel about it. But that's just elementary. We talked, how did we get here?
Well, you were saying that this next question was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Omar.
Hello, Tim Baker.
Hello, Mr. Cornette and Mr. Last. I am a proud, and maybe the only, Cult of Cornette member all the way from Malaysia. I'd like to ask your thoughts on throwing the towel in matches. I personally think it is a good way to elevate a story if done correctly. Jim, what do you think of the throwing in the towel being done, of throwing in the towel being done as a finish for a match?
I will throw in my answer, which is, it's another thing that's great if everybody understands it and gets it and it's set up. Or it's done in such a way that people don't go, what the fuck's going on here? It's done better in a promotion where the style is more sports-like, sports-based presentation, because it's something that everybody can understand. Where did the old saying come from? Well, he threw in the towel. That's good. That's a thing that was done in a fight when your corner man had determined that you had enough. He didn't want you to risk more punishment for future injury, whatever the case. Throw the towel in. Get the referee's attention. We wave it off. We've done. We're folding our tent. It's over. And that's been used in wrestling a few notable times when they didn't want to beat Backlund, or maybe Backlund didn't want to get beat. Who knows? With the Iron Sheik, so Skolin threw the towel in. If you just did it right now with no setup and out of nowhere, then nobody would get it. And chances are there's enough of these young fans that have just seen chaos wrestling with no fucking rules, parameters, whatever, that they wouldn't understand anything, much less that related to a rule being used or something unusual like that relates to sport and legitimate fighting instead of trampoline wrestling. But if you have a guy who has a corner man, who has a legitimate emotional investment in him, is it his son? Is it his protege that he has trained, or is it his best friend's son that he has become his protege, or just some emotional connection, some you know, a Rocky movie Burgess Meredith tie-in in the corner where the guy doesn't want to see his man hurt or injured or whatever. And, you know, then you could potentially do something like that where the fucking heel has done something behind the referee's back that the referee didn't see, but the babyface is hurting, and the corner man in the corner had saw it also, and he knows that his guy's not going to give up. He'll die before he gives up, so he makes the sacrifice to save him for the long run. And I say babyface because, look, you know, why would a heel's corner man throw the towel in? Because it just doesn't make sense. So you can do it, but only if you set up the relationship between the towel thrower and towel throwee and manage to build some dramatic spot or incident in the match where everybody understood that this guy wasn't going to do it on his own and he was risking the end of his career if somebody didn't stop it, and the referee is the clueless putz who doesn't realize it needs to be stopped. Then you can get away with it.
I ever got him to almost breaking character.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 times wrestlers couldn't keep a straight face.
What on earth? I got chills out here!
For this list, we'll be looking at the instances where professional wrestlers broke character by losing their composure in one way or another. Which moment made you do a double take? Let us know in the comments. Number 10, the Key of Jericho. Mick Foley's tenure as an on-screen WWE commissioner made for some very memorable moments.
Because you have the talent! You have the talent to win the match on your own!
One such instance occurred when he nearly lost his composure in front of the Ayatollah of rock and roller himself, Chris Jericho. Le Champion was in the middle of another golden run with the company and was working a storyline with Kevin Owens around the time of the 2016 Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
Are you mad because I locked the cell and twirled the key around?
During an in-ring interview segment, Foley seemed incredibly amused at Chris's Key of Jericho remark. We were sure the Hardcore Hall of Fame would use it.
Lock it in, man!
Number 9, Taker's travel problems. Everyone respects The Undertaker. There have also been certain members of the WWE roster that belong to his inner circle, one of which being John Bradshaw Layfield.
Not that I'm scared of you!
So when JBL decided to have some fun and play a little inside baseball during a promo, it caught Taker completely off guard. To the audience, JBL's comment about going on a relaxing vacation in an air-conditioned RV seemed like a throwaway line. However, it was actually an inside joke about The Undertaker's real-life experience.
You know what you need? You need a vacation!
One that included his van unexpectedly breaking down during a hot Texas day. It's slight, but you can totally see The Undertaker crack just a little.
And I see him start to grin.
Almost got you, the damn sure got me!
Number 8, CM Punk has heard enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined here tonight by some of the greatest and most decorated former champions ever.
By all accounts, CM Punk had mentally checked out during his run with the WWE by the time this segment aired. How else could we explain the exasperated grin on his face, not to mention the intentional fidgeting, while the Authority cut a promo in the ring? Punk seems incredulous at the sight of a ring packed with former champions, himself included, but refuses to sell what's going on between the ropes. Instead, he's caught on the hard cam laughing about Stephanie McMahon's commentary about her husband Triple H.
And at the pinnacle of that list is the 13-time champion, the King of Kings, my husband Triple H.
In short, he basically looks like he'd rather be anywhere else than where he was at that moment. Number 7, Randy Orton likes groups. Factions and tag teams are a great way to get talent over with the audience. The team-ups over the course of his career, and the New Day took great delight in poking gentle segment on Monday Night Raw, the team was rattling off their recent accomplishments. They then proceeded to point out just how many teams Orton had joined over the years.
But what about Legacy? Oh, no!
Including the likes of Evolution and Legacy, to name a few. Orton seemed quite amused by the whole thing, and the camera even catches the veteran superstar breaking character a number of times. Oh, Randy.
Damn, Randy! How many moves have you been in? I mean, come on, man.
Number 6, Paul London's smile. It's one of the most infamous instances of wrestling weirdness ever, and that's saying something. It all occurred during the impending storyline death of Mr. McMahon. An array of talent is seen lined up in the backroom halls as the chairman makes his exit from the building. Everyone looks on in a serious manner, except Paul London, who has a goofy smile on his face. London has gone on the record detailing that the segment was taped multiple times with this same odd smile on his face, with no one telling him to do otherwise. Rumours flew that this was the reason why London was let go by the company, but given that he remained employed for a while after the incident, it's likely not the case. Number 5, a Stone Cold Smirk. When the feud between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mr. McMahon was good, it was great. When it was weird, it was arguably even better, usually during their interactions, and there was a lot of them. Austin maintained his back-to-the-bone persona, but not even Stone Cold could contain his joy at the sight of Vince's dance moves. In the ever-expanding storyline, Vince had hitched his wagon to Mick Foley/Dude Love. This led to an odd celebration in the aisleway. We're pretty sure Austin was supposed to be unamused during the ordeal, but the camera catches the Hall of Famer smirking ear to ear at the absurdity of it all. We don't blame him.
What a message that Vince McMahon has just sent to the rattlesnake!
Number 4, try the fish. Fact, Shayna Baszler is tough as nails. However, not even she can hope to survive against R-Truth and his not-so-hidden superpower. It's hilarious. It all happened when Baszler was going on a rant during an episode of Real Talk. The fighter would go on to criticize the backstage filtering.
What kind of a person eats their fish with tartar sauce instead of cocktail sauce?
Apparently, this was too much for R-Truth, because he jumped in to defend the fried fish. He then suggested that Shayna should have used tartar sauce. Naturally, this puts Baszler over the edge, as we can clearly see that she's struggling to keep it together. Don't mess with Truth's fried fish, alright?
Nothing beats a failure but a try. That's about
Number 3, John Cena. The art of comedy in wrestling can be a delicate tightrope. Thankfully, Santino Marella succeeded in making us laugh more times than not, especially when he was playing the bad guy. There was just something absurdly likable about the star. Santino certainly knew how to make fun of himself, something that endeared him to the WWE universe. We can even count John Cena as a fan of its comedy. This is evidenced by an interview segment where Santino overemphasizes his accent when pronouncing Cena's name. The You Can't See Me superstar can be seen barely containing his grin, despite the fact that he's supposed to be mad at Marella.
You know what? You're the big mouth, John Cena, and there's nothing I would like more for Christmas than a chance to shot it.
There was no hiding that smile. Number 2, the Macho Man loses it. This next entry is an infamous incident that we kind of wish we couldn't recall, but it did indeed take place. In this somewhat obscure WCW storyline featuring the legendary Randy Macho Man Savage, the wrestler was portraying a dangerously unhinged tormentor of women. It's here that he became physical with his personal valet, Gorgeous George, in the backroom area. Unfortunately, Randy went off script and landed an unplanted slap to Tori Wilson as well. Tori seemed confused by the hit, laughing nervously to perhaps defuse the situation. This is an uncomfortable moment for all, but especially for Tori. Before we continue, be sure to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Dean Ambrose corpsing. This segment from WWE's 2014 Old School Raw represented a homecoming for the one and only Jake the Snake Roberts.
Jake the Snake Roberts!
Jake's battles with addiction and other personal demons have been well documented. Thankfully, the legend in the ring made it to a place of happiness, satisfaction, and good health. So, when Roberts and his pet of choice returned for a bit of nostalgia, Jon Moxley was perhaps more happy to lay down for the classic spot. Perhaps he was a little bit too happy, as the lunatic fringe was clearly giddy on the mat after Jake hit the ring. But hey, who are we to judge? We can only imagine how cool this moment would be for just about anyone.
Somebody call PETA! Oh my lord!
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from Watching Mojo. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.
We've almost finished the program, but we saved this till the last because I didn't want to ruin our fun and get in this mood and talk about this, but everybody has tweeted us the links to the stories. It made every newspaper, every wrestling site, mainstream news. A lot of people wanted to know what we've had to say and what we have to say, and I asked you before we did the program today, I said, should we talk about this? And you made me realize, I hadn't really sat down and thought about it, but there's almost no clips of Jim Cornette on this person we're about to talk about, except when we've done retrospectives of the different territories or places that they worked and etc. in the wrestling industry, but nothing much personally. And there's been a reason for that. Because I have for a long time now felt bad for, been embarrassed for, ashamed of, sad about whatever Tammy Sitch's life and the way it's turned out. And I didn't want to be out of, if nothing else but fond memories of Chris Candido, even after Tammy's let me down. I don't want to be the one to just put boots to somebody that's obviously a fucking train wreck and refuses to get their various shit together. Why do I need to do that? Because honestly and truthfully, I may be an anomaly in the profession, industry, everybody involved in it in any respect, that I've never had one single crossword or bad experience personally interacting with Tammy. And that, I think, makes me the only one. And I don't know whether it was even with the things that have gone on. I mean, it's not like we spent a lot of time around each other the last 10 or 15 years. I've seen her on occasion when she would show up. But I don't know whether it was just that she knew that she couldn't necessarily fool me because I was there at the start of all this and I know, you know, her tricks, or that she was grateful to me for giving them a start or whatever. But so I felt bad. Up until now, I didn't want to talk about her various fuck-ups because it's bad. But it was bad. She was fucking her life up. It was her doing about herself. And you shake your head and you have fond memories of people when they were not complete fuck-ups. And if that person has never done anything personal to you, or she's never caused any offense to me in terms of one of my trigger points, which is making a joke out of the wrestling business. She's brought bad publicity onto wrestling with her out-of-the-ring exploits, but she was never one to make a joke out of the business itself, or to go out there and do bullshit. And, she saved that for her private life. So, but now I've gone from trying to support her in the 90s when she was first starting to get too big for her britches, trying to help sometimes in the 2000s a bit when she just seemed like she needed help or had troubles or whatever. But you'd ask her, are you okay? Oh, everything's fine now. I've got my shit together. And then the next thing you hear, she's in jail again. I've gone from that to feeling bad, feeling embarrassed, to resign that she was never going to straighten herself up, and that was going to be one of those things, and you wish good for people, but they're not going to do it for themselves, and you can't do it for them if they won't do it. But I still, as much as we all thought, well, this is not going to end well, I still thought it was her that she was doing the damage to, and that it would be her to, unfortunately, suffer the consequences. But now she's killed somebody. And I've gone from feeling bad to being embarrassed to resign to now, what the fuck? This has gone too far, and Tammy, regardless of whatever bad things happen to you and Chris, or you in the wrestling business, or things that cause you to fall back, or whatever the fuck, somebody just wrote she's been arrested 17 times in the last 10 years with 7 DUIs. And at some point, if you don't learn a lesson before it gets to half of those numbers, it's your responsibility. And I don't know how this... The thing is now, at least over the last couple of years, she was in fucking jail. Hopefully she's not going to OD or get drunk and fall and kill herself, or drive and kill herself, or whatever. She's got no driver's license. She just got out of jail a few months ago for these various offenses, and she's in Florida and driving somebody else's car. She's not allowed to have a driver's license. Apparently, I would assume not allowed to have a car, so she's driving somebody else's. They're probably going to get a wonderful civil suit coming up soon. And she kills somebody, a 75-year-old man sitting at a stop sign. Or a stoplight or whatever. How would you, Brian, I'm a pretty good talker, I can talk myself out of a few things. How would I have talked myself out of that without 17 arrests on my record the last 10 years, without 7 DUIs? I'm coming down the street, and what witnesses say is a high rate of speed. I blow through the stop apparatus and crash into a motionless stopped car, killing the person that's in it. And fucking myself up too, so she got taken to the hospital, and then apparently from every news story that I've heard about this or read, after she got out of the hospital, they let her go. They said they took they took blood tests for toxicology, and they requested the results be expedited to see whether criminal charges should be filed. And I'm putting myself in that place. I've done the exact same thing. I tell the cop, oh shit, I didn't see the guy sitting there motionless. I was going too fast. I'm going to go home now. Let me know if you need me. How the fuck do you get away with that? So, there was an article on PWInsider.com by Mike Johnson, and I suggest everybody read it. It was probably this past Monday or Tuesday, whenever this news came out. Apparently everybody was too busy with WrestleMania because it happened the weekend before WrestleMania. But if WWE Hall of Famer goes to jail in Florida and the news doesn't come out for 10 days. But Mike Johnson wrote that article, and when I read it, I said, I wish I'd have written it. It's how I feel. It's more articulate than I can be about the subject. He sat down and thought about it. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But it's been sad when it was just her. And you feel bad, but what are you going to do? And it's somebody else's life. But now it's somebody else's life. And I know it's sad. But this is too much and too far. And if she can't get her shit together, and somebody tweeted the picture, says she was driving a Mercedes. I've had a valid driver's license for 45 years. I don't drive a Mercedes. She's driving a Mercedes that apparently she's got some jacked up meathead boyfriend again down there that's, maybe it was, they said it was his car because he drives a Mercedes. If he's letting her fucking out and about, then he's as fucking guilty as she is. But at some point now, since we're aware and obvious that she's not going to do anything to stop herself, somebody needs to do it for her. And I hate to have to say that. And I've said in the Smoky Mountain retrospectives and some of the WWF stories, I felt bad for quite some time because I knew who she was when she started out. She's always been a bitch. We talked about that. She's always gets heat with people, but she was talented and straight. She worked for me for 2 years. She didn't drink beer. She never took a pill. She was never late. She was never unprofessional, never argued about a finish, never questioned a promo. I watched her get knocked off the ring in Morristown. Unbeknownst to her that it was coming, she got crossed over. She was green then, got knocked off the apron, hit first to the concrete, broke her finger. It was fucking sickening to look at her head back like that. She runs in, gets one of the boys to crank it back for her, and runs out for the finish. Never complained about a check. Nothing. We go to the WWF, and that's where the problem started, because in hindsight and probably trying to do a little psychological work, she always had a high opinion of herself, and when it was validated by her becoming a big star, that was the beginning of trouble. And then besides pulling the shit she pulled on Chris and trying to associate with all the main eventers, she's a big celebrity. She's the most downloaded woman on the internet back when that was a new thing. She's making a lot of money. And as I've said before, I think the problem with Chris and substances was pain and injuries. The problem with her was just, oh, I'm hanging around with a bunch of people that do it, and it'd probably be cool, I'll do it too. And she didn't need to be doing it. But even then, I've told you, right, nobody wanted to deal with her. And when they took her off the program, per se, as a manager and made her just a personality, the deal she had with the WWF was that they would put her on the road doing these personal appearances and on-sale dates and various publicity as this star attraction in the WWE, even though she didn't really have she wasn't a wrestler, nor was she managing anyone. She was just Sunny, right? And so they gave her a deal where they would pay her contract money, plus this, since she's traveling all over doing these appearances, they would pay for her road expenses, food and hotel and transportation. And they nominated me after a while to be the one in charge of her. Jim Ross didn't want to deal with her. Bruce Pritchard didn't want to deal with her because she was snotty and snide and bitchy to all of them, and etc. And she didn't do that to me for whatever reason. And I also, it was the deal where she was turning in $80 breakfast at the Marriott 25 years ago because it was at 11 whites and no egg yellows and all this. She's beating Chris is with her, and they're trying to heel it in on the office. And all was called Satanic. Start eating the egg yellows and tell Chris to bring a fucking sandwich. I'm turning into half of this. Okay. Nobody else can deal with her, but I never had a problem. But everybody else did, and now that she became her own problems. And then she lost her complete, ever-loving fucking mind. So I can't defend it. Don't take any pleasure in saying it, but somebody's got to make her accountable for herself because she's not going to do it. And now at this point, maybe it's saving her life, but it's too late for the guy she just ran over. So for me, I think that I'll always find something rosy to talk about when it's my friends and people I have never done anything bad to me, and that I don't have any issue with. I can't excuse this. And so for everybody who was asking, what do you think? It's sad, and it's embarrassing, but ultimately all this is her fault. And you can't see it. I assume she's going to be in jail at some point for the rest of her life. Can't say that for sure. If some evidence does come through, oh God, the brakes failed. Well, then I'll be the first one to say, well, thank goodness. You're a fuck up, but you didn't fuck up that much. But do we really think that news is going to come out?
The 7 DUI number is the one that I knew she had several, but I didn't realize it was that many. And as bad as it is that she keeps adding up, it's even worse that she's allowed to. But after 4, after 3, after a couple times where you show that even if you suspend your license, you shouldn't drink and drive, you keep doing it.
How about when you get arrested for anything 4 times in the same day? Wasn't that her record when she was going after the other boyfriend and trying to climb in the apartment building or whatever? Just 3, there were 4. Something about that. You said, hey, maybe I need to modify my behavior. So, anyway, check out the article on PW Insider. Mike Johnson wrote it. I agree with it. And he didn't take any pleasure in writing it either, but a lot of us have known her since she was a teenager. And you would have never thought that that person would end up this way.
Well, Jim, let's get another email here. This isn't actually a question. It's a reference to something we talked about on the Experience, I believe, last week. Dusty Rhodes and Andy Warhol's diary. Someone found the entry that I mentioned. They sent it in here. From February 20th, 1978. I'll read portions of this. Monique Van Warren was having a sit-down dinner at Premiere at 9:30, and I'd said yes. I forgot that Tom Sullivan had tickets for wrestling because he met Dusty Rhodes, the wrestler, at an airport. They'd become friends. We go past this next one. Here we go. Tom picked us up there at 8:30. We went over there, and there were like 26,000 people there. I thought wrestling was a dead sport. I didn't know so many people went to it. Dusty Rhodes was wrestling a Japanese guy. They all wear sequins, all of them. I guess they got their style from Gorgeous George. He really influenced them. And they strip on stage.
And by the way, Andy Warhol may have been a groundbreaking artist, but he's no fucking William Shakespeare as a writer, by the way.
What's his diary again? Catherine went to take pictures, but the fight was over in 8 minutes. Now they're getting good-looking wrestlers. Dusty Rhodes said he'd be right out, but he didn't come out until about 20 minutes. He wore lots of jewelry, and he had dark glasses on, but when he took them off, it looked like he still had them on. He had huge dark rings around his eyes, and he had lots of bruises all over. We took him to Monique's night. He has her parentheses wrestling ticket, $600. Then we went to Film Spa, and they wanted to go dancing. Up to Harris. Because he was a little apprehensive when he saw Mickey Fairies, and he asked for a girl. The
Andy's non-politically correct version.
And let's also mention Andy was a gay man, so he's saying it about other gay men.
Did you know Andy? Okay, well, I did not. So I wasn't aware of what his various persuasions
Well,
were.
he didn't really announce it, but now, all these years later, there have been books, there have been different things that have come out about different people he was partners with throughout his life.
Well, what does his business partners have to do with this?
Okay, let's get back to this. When he sold the fairies, he asked for a girl. The owner got a girl from someplace behind us, and he fixed him up with her. Then, after Harrah's, we dropped Dusty and the girl at the Sheridan, and Catherine and Tom picked up hamburgers, and we went to Westbury. They dropped me off.
You know, I wonder if Dusty knew that he was going to get stooged off for messing around in Andy Warhol's diary years later.
You know what? He's sitting there, he's like, I wonder what's going on. I know what I'll do. I request a girl. Yeah. I would like a girl right now, please.
Is the lady here?
And they found one. And they had one. That's the other thing. You requested a girl and they had one ready to go.
Well, you never know when you might need one.
Sheridan.
At the Sheridan. That's where they usually hang around.
Well, luckily, Andy Warhol got picked up by Tom Sullivan in his tail. And luckily, Tom Sullivan's car was working, but if there was a problem with Tom Sullivan's car and they couldn't get the American Dream and his woman to the Sheridan, maybe they should call someone or get in touch with someone for the best auto parts.
Well, you don't have to call anymore, Brian. That's old-fashioned. That's old school. You don't have to pick up the phone now. All you got to do is log on to the interwebs, the World Wide Net, and you go right to rockauto.com. That's what you should have been doing. Your car wouldn't be shaking and shimmering and vibrating like a dog pooching pooping peach seeds if you do the maintenance and you replace these things in a timely fashion, whether it's a crankshaft manipulator or whether it's the grease that makes sure that your thermostat goes through to the circuit box correctly. All these things and more are available at rockauto.com, no matter what make or model of car that you have, no matter what year. You got a 1929 Wombat, well, actually you might be fucked. Still drivable, chances are that rockauto.com has the part that you need, from engine parts to simple things like carpet and even draperies. And my God, you ought to see the incredible napkin sets that they have. And you can set your entire dinner table. But that's, nevertheless, the main thing you want from rockauto.com is auto parts. And you go to that website, their catalog is unique and easy to navigate. No matter what type of motorized conveyance that you are trying to outfit, whether you mentioned ferries, whether it be a ferry boat, you know, whether it's ferry you across the Mersey, or whether it be a car, a truck, a unicycle, a bicycle, a tricycle, a motorcycle, a tank, an amphibious submarine vehicle, whatever the case. You navigate this website, you pick your part, you choose the brand, you choose the specification, you choose the prices you prefer. You can't choose whether to pay for them or not, that's mandatory. And they'll send them right to you, the same prices for professionals as well as do-it-yourselfers. And folks, why spend up to twice as much for the same parts that you're not going to be able to figure out how to put on your car? You can get them from Rock Auto for much less and still screw the whole thing up. And when you go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car, truck, even if they're ones you don't need, get them, you might need them in the future, and write JCE in there. How did you hear about us, box? Just so we look good. You'll get nothing but satisfied with the high quality and low prices at rockauto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, and then some. People often have parts left over when they finish fixing their car. In that case, just put them in a box. Your neighbor might ask for them later. RockAuto.com.
Well, Jim, let's rock on with this show here with that awful transition. Rock on with the drive-thru.
With this show.
man that continues to fascinate a section of wrestling fans is the man known as Ryback. I don't know if you've seen any of his recent comments.
Well, yeah. Well, I thought you were asking because I got a number of tweets and a number of emails when I tweeted to him about one of the more recent stupid things that he said. So, what is your question about?
This one was sent to cornydrivethrugmail.com from Jamie Murray, Glasgow, Scotland. I was wondering what your thoughts are on Ryback's recent claim that he could destroy Paul Heyman on the mic. And I have it quote here. I guess someone tweeted to Ryback on Twitter, thoughts on Paul Heyman? I've always wished the pairing between you and him could have lasted longer. So he fan of Ryback and Paul Heyman. To which Ryback replied, Paul was a piece of shit and he knows it. I would destroy him with an open mic and no script. He has a credit for himself, though, latching on to talented wrestlers.
This guy was he born this way? Is it the gradual degenerative effects of monkey hormones and fucking horse serum that he has injected into his orifices over his lifetime? How can any one human being say so many multiple stupid things? Even wrestling fans who would be predisposed to like his fucking big worthless ass. You just say, what the fuck's the matter with this guy? What I was talking about a minute ago, and then I'll answer this, was he also, I guess, WWE itself is given one of the newsletter websites, whatever, just tweeted out who's the greatest wrestler never to be the WWE champion, or some question like that, so they can do a poll or whatever. And either somebody mentioned him, or he just decided to jump into it, because he went on this rant about a championship belts that are just props. Championships are props. He didn't even say the word belt. He's not that smart enough to wrestling to use the word belt. Championships are just props. Nobody wins them. Wrestling is fake. They're just props used to market the character. Like, because he's mad because he never won the title because he's a fucking reckless, big, muscle-headed, meat-headed fuck that hurt people, I guess. So now he calls attention to everything that he wasn't good at as being fake and phony, and nobody wins it. It's given to him, and it's blah, blah, blah. And he's the one that said everybody should be paid the same up and down the card because they're all entertainers. And he used the word entertainer in this tweet. And I just tweeted back to him, I don't even know what it was, but something to the effect of, hey, you fucking disrespectful, fat-headed fuck. Just because you think you're a fucking entertainer, try saying that shit around the boys in the locker room 30 years ago and see how your ass had been entertained. Fucking crap. That's the example of people that get in this fucking business, and whatever success they have goes to their head as far as they think they're goddamn movie stars and entertainers rather than pro wrestlers, have no respect for the business whatsoever, and then want to take the piss out of the business to the point where they weren't really fucking good at it and weren't rewarded for it. And if he was such a fucking big star, apparently he's as popular as crotch rot today as in terms of wrestling promotions, because unlike me, I never heard him say he's retired. Nobody just wants to book his ass. So what the fuck? But anyway, now I think he's fucking drinking Drano if he thinks that in any way, shape, or form he could be in any way more effective or more entertaining or more
Or just tear someone down on the bike.
Or just, then Paul Heyman? What the fuck is the matter with this? As Lance Storm once said, as a comparison, that's like trading your house for a tent. Oh, fuck. No, I don't want Heyman. I don't want Ryback on the microphone. Jesus, they could shove a microphone up his ass and let him fucking broadcast it in his intestinal gas, Heyman, and it would be more entertaining and coherent than fucking Fatback.
That's the one thing I've never heard anyone say about Heyman. I know lots of people who are pissed off with him or hated him at various points. No one's ever said, you know what, give me Mike. I'll destroy him. No one ever. The one thing no one can is that talent running his mouth.
Yeah, it's like, fuck that Genghis Khan, but what physique he's got, right? The one thing you can't say bad. Yeah, I've never fucking met this guy, and, you know, probably never shall. Old fatbacks. But I don't know what's the matter with him.
We have another quote from Fatback.
Uh-oh.
A guy who went, didn't he change his name legally to Ryback so he can continue to use it, and then
Yes,
he doesn't do anything. He doesn't wrestle anywhere.
but he changed his legal name to Ryback just so that they wouldn't be able to keep him from not using it anywhere.
He doesn't care where they did, I'm going to do that, and then he did nothing. But here's this other quote. This was sent to CourtneyDriveThru@gmail.com from Stephen Hunt. I don't recall.
I used to know Steven's brother Mike.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
I don't recall Chin answering this. Thoughts on Bitter Ryback being the only one to tweet during Christmas? His tweet? As I've heard, his health isn't great these days, talking about Vince McMahon. Hopefully he can find the strength to overcome so he can witness me kicking his ass. So your thoughts on Ryback wanted to kick Vince's ass. He's not doing well, but I want to kick his ass.
First of all, I doubt very seriously if Ryback left me allowed in the presence of Vince's ass, except maybe whenever he ends up desperate and goes back and kisses it, if that's still a thing. And that would accomplish what exactly that he kicked the ass of a 76-year-old man now, if I'm doing my math right. I saw something that reported that he had done this in-depth interview with, Joe's podcast and Discount Upholstery, where he said about the offer that he turned down and left the company was like $1.6 million for 3 years. Explain to me who else in the known universe, much less just our solar system, would give this fucking Cro-Magnon slap shit fucking more than $500,000 a year to go out and be a middle card fucking guy. So I think they were being generous, but he thought he was worth more than that. And he wants to beat Vince McMahon up for offering him over $1.5 million to just show up and be one of the boys. It's not like that there was this stone cold Steve Austin waiting to burst out of Fatback. It was what it was. And probably it would have gone downhill as it got old, because those one-trick ponies usually do.
The more I think about it, he really is like a Warrior. I mean, Warrior was much more successful.
Yeah, he did the success first, instead of fucking being a great fucking obnoxious prick.
But he changed his name so he can continue to use his name, and then he really didn't do much because he priced everyone out of the market. Or he priced himself out of the market, I should say.
Yeah.
And then he started cutting bizarre internet promos on various people in wrestling.
Yeah.
Then eventually they brought him back and he smiled, hugged everyone.
Yeah.
And he died.
Well, old Fatback's got 2 stages left to go. I wonder if they'll bring him back. And then I wonder, well, he ain't gonna get in the Hall of Fame. That you know what, that would kill him. If they announced that they were gonna put him in the Hall of Fame, he would have a heart attack.
Chris Benoit was a good friend of mine. Me and this guy, we went all over the world together. I remember working out together in Germany. I remember the guy Dieter Crap. That was his real name, Dieter Crap. We did a tour in Germany, and it was me, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero. We all rode together that whole tour, And remember me and Eddie got into it. I was kind of frustrated anyway with that was what we were getting to. And some people wanted an autograph or something like that, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I got it in the car. to your fans, man. Hey, man, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I just snapped. So I got out of the fucking car. And I'm like, get your fucking ass out of the car. I'm going to beat the fuck out of you right now. Get your ass out of the car. And then Chris was like, hey, man, calm down, calm down. Stop, man, I'm tired of your fucking ass. But it wasn't really me talking. It was my frustration of this tour.
It was a tour.
Right, and I'm away from my daughter, who was a baby at the time. Right. So I think just the overall dig of being cold, because you know Germany gets really, really cold. Doing these shitty ass towns, shitty ass hotels. You know, the guy didn't spend any money for the stuff. I think this guy took me. And so he was like, hey man, I'm sorry, I didn't really mean it like that, blah, blah, blah. So I'm fucking in the car, still hot. We get to the hotel, go to my room. A couple hours later, 2-3 hours later, I hear somebody knocking on my door. I go to my door, it's Chris Benoit. Like, hey man, can I come in? I said, come on in, what's up? And he was like, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay, man. I'm nothing. I was just like, just making sure you was okay. Well, you know, man, if you need anybody to talk to or something like that, you know, just holler at me, man. Okay? I appreciate you coming by.
But you guys weren't close like that at that point. So it kind of caught you off guard.
No, we talked every day.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
All right. All the time, but not like this. You know what I'm saying? Just my general stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And every day we would work out together. Me and him worked out together every day. And that's the Chris Benoit that I know. And when people have asked me, do you think he would do something like this? And I just remember the Chris Benoit that I know from Japan, England, Great Britain, Germany. Remember that guy? And that guy, if I line him 100 wrestlers, he would be. That's it. If somebody said, what wrestlers would do something that means, we would be able to.
Well, what the hell do you think happened? I mean, I'm sure you've thought about this.
I have thought about it.
What the hell do you think went on?
I don't know. The only thing I can say is this. When it comes to marriage, and when it comes to a woman, I know that can push a man to the brink. And you know when they did the thing when his brand showed that he had CTE. But I'm just saying this, I'm not saying, I'm just putting that in context. Who knows what if they had a volatile relationship? I don't know. Nancy was always a cool person. But,
So you never saw any outward issues?
I've never seen Chris Benoit upset.
Okay, wow.
I can't say that about any other top wrestler that I ever been around for all those years. I've never seen this guy upset.
Wow.
This is the guy, just the peacemaker guy. Mm-hmm. Like I told you when he came to my hotel, this is that guy.
Right.
Always level-headed. Always smiling, got something nice to say. He's a joker sometimes. Everybody had the utmost respect for this guy. He's, to this day, I don't know. Wow. I don't know. I've never seen this guy upset. Now, if something like that happened with me, it'll be 1,000 people that say, yeah, I've seen that guy upset before. Yeah, I can see him doing something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But I've never seen this guy upset.
Wow.
Never seen him raise his voice. Even after a match or somebody missed a spot, he's the first guy. Hey, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. You know, we'll do it this way, blah, 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 next time, blah, blah. He was that guy.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
I think I ran into Chris one time. Him and Brad Armstrong were together at a train station when we were going to another arena, and we knew each other from that standpoint, but didn't really get a chance to spend some time. But once we did, kind of like Eddie, man, we clicked from the very beginning. Chris was pedal to the metal, no nonsense. Just, I mean, every night he was on, you know, and that bell rang. He was the guy.
What about outside the ring? What was he like back in this period of time as a person?
Chris was quiet. Chris was took a while to earn his trust, but once he did, you know, we all had great times together.
It said that after Eddie passed away, that Chris really changed. Do you believe that?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Not that we went our own ways, but I was a producer for the company,
right?
And Chris was an in-ring talent. So we used to travel together for 15 years, all three of us in the car, nonstop. And we were kind of inseparable at the time, but I kind of moved on. I kind of had my own thing going, and so I was, you know, they kind of went their way. Even though we were at the buildings, we were always great friends, but I didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted to or should have, really, during all that time.
You're probably considered one of his closest friends. Did you have any suspicion that something was wrong before the end of his life?
Not at all.
He was just totally normal, same as Chris?
I would have trusted Chris with my life and my kids.
When did you learn that something had happened?
We were in Houston, Texas. Can't remember the exact date because it was coming up. I was assigned to the match between Nets and Chris Benoit. I was excited. Actually went to Vince's office, and we talked. He said something over.
How did you react to the situation?
Because I was a winter afraid once. Right, okay. If anybody told me it was going to be him, because he had just had a child, second child, I never thought what was going to happen would happen. And I still don't, nobody knows what happened. Most people got me. I just know that I know the mother very well, and I don't think your father had a bad legacy. Even the Benoit family had a legacy. Right. He was a student of the game. He might go too hard on himself. I've heard other people talk. I heard Jericho, and I heard Bulldogs kid talk. At one time, he screwed up the thing and he did 50 squats. He's always chewing on that thing. Nobody ever saw Chris Benoit dress. He was an intense individual. He went to Japan when he first started. Now, I know what it used to be like there, where they abused you. I never had a problem with Chris until the very end, when I put the belt on him. Somehow they thought I was going to. He thought I was going to screw him, put the world title on him.
How so?
I don't know. But do you know how hard it was? I brought Sid Vicious in the room at 6'9". I said to him, Bruce, there's no one tonight. And he said, I'm losing the prison.
entire 10 years, whatever, 5 years in baseball Hall of Fame. Maybe such a joke. You know, put Eddie in, you know, because Eddie died of a heart attack because Eddie was using steroids. Does that make him any better or worse of a person than Chris? He's horrendous emotions today. Does that make him any worse of a person than Sonny, who is 29 or, you know, I don't think so. His history is not deserving of praise. I know how hard he works to accomplish it. It just disgusts me that they try to change wrestling history over whether Vince doesn't like. The guy has a heart attack. Something with the steroids, that's all. On June 25th, 7-year-old Ben was crying in their bed. His home gym I didn't just say sorry, I didn't take the day of it. Security was like, strike me as a lot of fantastic because I went there to be God. He was so passionate about what he did, that's almost as long as he was horrible, tragic. However, the doctrine is that we mark the number 16
instead utilize human avatars to speak and act on their behalf. And throughout the Moon Knight series, we have come to learn a little bit about what happened to these Egyptian gods in their past that may have led to this. We hear vague contradictions between whether or not they abandoned humanity or humanity. Based on actual history of the Egyptian Empire roughly lived around the year 1000 BC. This estimate is based on the actual height of the real-life Egyptian Empire during the peak of their military power and their hold on the Nile, just before they began to descend into prominence and significance. And if the Egyptian gods were assisting in the construction of ancient Egypt, then this would most likely be for an indication of around when they left Earth. If they left shortly following the peak of the empire, then the slow decline into the modern age could be attributed to their abandonment and abandonment of humanity. But it's important to mention that they could have left much later. It's just highly unlikely that they left any earlier than this. If Odin was 5,000 years old when he died in 2017 AD, then that would mean that he is in the prime of his life around the time the Egyptian gods would have been in power. And we also know that Hela would have been by his side at this time. Empire to the prosperity that they knew it could one day achieve. We get glimpses of Odin in around 1000 AD in Kongsberg, Norway, where he looks to be roughly middle-aged at the time. For reference, Thor is roughly 1,500 years old, putting him one-third of the way through his neutral life, or roughly 30 years old in human terms. He was not born until roughly 500 AD, however, leaving an extensive history for his father and his sister to conquer the galaxy before he ever existed, which we come to learn about with the events of Thor Ragnarok. Is it possible that at this time, Hela and Odin invaded Earth while the Egyptians were at the height of their power, and subsequently drove the Egyptians into hiding, causing them to abandon humanity and leaving Khonshu to deviate from his own path? Let's look at a lot of the details. We know that Odin and Hela did in fact invade Earth, as she attributes the Nine Realms to their conquest and control, stating that Odin wanted to limit their control only after they had already conquered all 9 of the realms. What we don't know, however, is when this all took place, but if we're going off of real-life history and records of Norse mythology, then we can learn when the Norse gods rose to prominence, and that may give us a better idea of what had happened in the MCU. The earliest confirmation of stories regarding the Norse gods being recorded in modern history dates back to the 12th century. However, many historians avidly believe that not only are the roots of Norse mythology far older than this, but are older than Christianity itself, which was the catalyst for the shift in time measurement that we now use today. This could mean that in the MCU, legends of Norse gods began due to their ongoing conflict with the Egyptian pantheon and their conquest of Earth, but the exact stories were lost to history until the early 12th century, and there are a few interesting ideas to support this claim. Primarily, what does it mean for the Asgardians to have conquered Earth? What does that look like? We know that Earth is called Midgard, and Hela considers it to be a part of the Asgardian Empire. However, there are no Asgardians present on Earth at any time. Thor himself is the first known instance of Asgardian intervention since Odin's conflict with the Frost Giants in Kongsberg, and humans are only just now learning of the existence of the Norse gods, and their actual existence, that is. So this leaves the question, who did they take Earth from? And who did Hela and Odin have to conquer to claim the Earth? The term Hela uses, conquest, implies that they took control of the land from somebody else, and exerted they didn't take it from humanity. as humans are free to live their daily lives without ever even knowing of Asgard's existence. In fact, Asgardians have been shown protecting humans on numerous occasions, including Odin against the Frost Giants. It's also important to note that this is not in reference to Odin's shift in benevolent rulership, as he only became benevolent only after all 9 realms had already been conquered and were already under Asgard's rule. He conquered Earth violently with Hela. We just have to figure out when. At some point in the past, Asgard with Odin and Hela at the helm of the conflict took control of Earth away from somebody else, somebody who was presiding over humanity. And at some point, there was another faction that held control of the Earth. According to the timeline of real-life history, and what we know so far about the Egyptian gods, it makes sense that Odin and Hela took the Earth from the Egyptian pantheon. But this raises another question: why the Egyptians and not the Greeks? It's also important to briefly mention the Greek gods, as they are set to make their debut this coming July in Love and Thunder, and explain exactly why we don't believe it was the Greeks that the Norse conquered, and it wasn't the Greeks that ultimately were conquered by Hela and Odin. The height of the Greek Empire took place around 500 to 300 BC, but it's important to mention that the Greek gods as individuals also carried over into the Roman Empire, which ushered in the turn of the new millennium and was one of the single most prolific empires in history. While this pantheon would have been much more powerful if their empire was anything to go off of, and they also have much more in line with the timeline, as they would have been present in between the height of the Egyptian and the Norse reign of gods. We do not believe that the Norse gods took control of Earth from the Greeks, and this is due to a simply innocuous line from the Eternals film. During the dinner scene in the Eternals cite Thor as a long-time friend, implying that they were close friends with the Norse gods of Earth, last time present, and friends with the Asgardians, as they claim that Thor was still a small child, likely around 1000 AD, when the flashback scene in the first movie played. We also know that they were close friends with the Greek gods, seeing as they have been confused with Greek myths and stories for centuries, placing them firmly in Greece among the Greek people and gods for years on end. The legend of Icarus, as told by the Greek people, was based on the eternal Icarus, as were the stories of Athena, and so on and so forth. And they are so closely tied to